At dawn, Brenda Howe's SUV thundered past my cornfield like a robe. Buffalo knocking down stalks and crashing into my Scarecrow. Sam with a harsh snap of wood and straw. The SUV hardly slowed as Sam's head came off, landing on her hood like a grim hello. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand jaw, slack as Brenda backed over his remains for good measure, and took off as if she hadn't just killed a Scarecrow in cold daylight. That when I knew Brenda wasn't your average bad neighbor, she was a storm coming my way, convinced my farm was her playground. Sam had guarded this land long before Brenda came with her pristine McMansion and HOA swagger. He was weathered, one button eye, missing straw protruding from his sleeves. But he had soul. Every child in town knew Sam. Every bird respected him, come fall festival. He stood front and center, freshly painted with a silly grin. He was as much the farm as the rickety barn, or the old rusty tractor that still growled to life on cold mornings, to Brenda. However, Sam was a blight in ire. She'd sneered during her occasional grading visits to my fence line. She'd relocated 6 months ago, grabbing the old Dawson place across the street, hell-bent on making our town her suburban utopia rules, clipped hedges and all wildflowers, rustic charm and scarecrows. Not for her, I thought she'd mellow, small town. Life tends to mellows the strict, but Brenda did not bend. She calcified. First, she complained about my fence, too rustic, not her plastic white ideal. Then Sam spooked her yippy dog a fluff ball on stilts. By her third visit, she wasn't asking. She was ordering I brushed her off farmer style, but Brenda did not take kindly to being discarded. That's when the chaos erupted the first time Sam went down. I attributed it to a fluke, tire tracks. In the mud, perhaps a slick turn after rain. Rebuilt him, not ideal, but standing by evening. 2 days later, he was flat once more. Tire marks leading back to Brenda's drive. Her SUV's bumper imprint imprinted on his chest like a calling card. I might have laughed had it not been so infuriating at the feed store. Brenda sneered, perhaps placed him somewhere safer, and winked. I ain't one to fight over straw and sticks, but I don't let people trample my property. Neither. Sam was handmade by my father when I was a child, running hens barefoot each dent. Each patch told a story twice during a week. Brenda flattened him that evening, porch sitting as the sun was setting. I knew this wasn't going down with a conversation she'd drawn. First blood smiling like she just begged. Gun strike 3 hit. Saturday that I was in town getting lumber, Brenda put Sam out of his misery. I came home to straw-splintered wood and a shred of his flannel. Waving in the breeze, worse, a note stuck where he'd stood in bold, loopy scrawl. Get a real decoration. Brenda anger burned not only for Sam, but for her goal. Assuming she could waltz in and rule my land. Perhaps it was time to demonstrate her some people battle silent. I carried Sam's body to the barn, placed them on Dad's workbench, tools and unfinished projects still strewn, and saw Brenda hadn't only destroyed a Scarecrow, she'd provided me with a reason to play by farm rules. She didn't stop. Sam's death energized her. I bandaged him up once more. She waited for his stormy evening. Lightning flashed when I discovered him face down, torn apart in mud tire tracks from her house glowing at rain. Her taillights died smugly into the dark. Next morning waved from her porch, leopard robe, coffee in hand, as if she hadn't played Crash Derby on my field. This was about power, now pushing my limit. Folks wiser than raccoons know when to stop. Brenda didn't word spread. Earl at the hardware store grinned, handing me nail Scarecrow trouble. Maggie at the diner whispered need. Help rebuilding him. I appreciated it. But this was mine to resolve. Brenda drove by at night. First, she slowed, smirking at Sam's limp body. Second, she cried, give it up, farm guy, and hosed gravel peeling out. I said nothing. Gears turning. The fourth hit. She hit him on phone in hand like it was her lot. I stood staring from the porch until she drove away. Sam pulped under her tires that night. Barn steps under me, wind earthy and hay thick. I remembered Dad, every issue's had to be fixed. Be patient. I'd been patient too. Patient just sits eyeing the workshop padlocked barn. It clicked. Dad showed me welding, shaping metal to withstand. If it shouldn't break, don't construct it as it will. He'd said next on. I opened that door, oil and memory wafting out. The welder under a tarp, steel scraps and pipes. Solid beneath dust, everything I needed. I draw on the new Sam, same hat, flannel straw, outside, inside, steel spine, welded arms, base sunk 2 feet deep. Brenda's SUV would get its match in disguise as the old Scarecrow sparks flew while I labored, radio humming. Brenda drove by, probably hoping for defeat. I did not look up, let her believe she'd won gossip, circulated steel pip in my pickup, fueled speculation about fences or surrender. Sheriff Dan and Maggie fired knowing glances but remained mom. I welded late frogs croaking. Stars blazed each joint of promise to dad the land. Every soul confronting a Brenda, Sam turned into a monument, completed he resembled unchanged flannel jeans. Stitch grin, but steel vibrated beneath bolted stiff arms. Unbreakable, he remained at dawn where he'd always been. Beside coffee fog clearing. Waiting Brenda wouldn't have resisted, she arrived quickly. Fog remained thick, her SUV rumbling. I sat on the porch as she squinted at Sam and then revved it, plowing through corn directly at him. The crash boomed, her bumper crushed. Headlights exploded, airbags slammed her face. Sam stood at askew, but firm steam hissed. Crows flapped. I walked over, coffee in hand, as Brendo struggled the airbag, screaming, "What did you do? Just put Sam back." I said. She blundered out, dangling. Jabbing a finger, "You booby-trapped it. I'll sue vandalism, attempted murder." I suppressed the laugh. "A murder? You drove on my land to kill a Scarecrow." Her face flared. "I'll call the sheriff, please do." I said. An hour later, Sheriff Dan came, Brenda ranted, hopping mad, accusing I'd weaponized Sam. Dan listened, then searched him, tugged sleeves, tapped the chest. IED, the best well-built Scarecrow. He shrugged, sturdy but legal. Brenda gaped. "It's a death trap. You trespassed and hit an immovable object." Dan said. "That's on you." "She wet on me. I'll sue you. Dry good luck." I smiled. Dan ushered her off, hinting at trespassing charges. She glared from her wrecked SUV as the tow truck hauled it away towns. Folk, Earl, Maggie, even Dan with he watched. Grinning Brenda, shame was public. Now quiet followed, tense, expectant. Brenda H up curtains, shut no drives. By I-tended fences, cattle glancing at Sam. Steel beneath straw, guarding firm. Then came her counterattack, a wax-sealed letter, threatening lawsuits, endangerment, distress claiming a rigged Sam to ruin her. I laughed over coffee, filling it with junk mail. She had no case, just desperation after wrecking her SUV and pride. But I'd been prepared since Sam first fell. Sheriff Dan stopped by, casual in jeans with Maggie sandwiches. "She's filing charges," he said. "Endangerment? Damage? Manslaughter for a Scarecrow?" I chuckled. He smirked. Brenda logic. I handed him a thumb drive. Trail cams, barn footage. GoPros, capturing every hit. Her grins, the note. "You sure?" he asked. "Time she learns." I said. "I, Sam, by week's end." Brenda bragged at the diner about bearing me in court. Then mid-Saturday papers hit her outside the hardware store, trespassing, destruction, harassment, endangerment. Her jaw dropped, silence, deafening the town. Hummed church potlucks, gas stations, a bus. Her HOA ousted her insurance, ditched her fees, piled up 2 weeks later. Brenda packed a rental SUV alone, frantic bins and bags stuffed in. I watched from the fence as she FLED, dust trailing neighbors, peered relief. Thick she was gone. Sam stood proud, wearing a sheriff's badge from Dan Unofficial, but a town laughed, that sunset orange and pink. I toasted Sam from the porch. "Good work, pal." The farm breathed easy. Brenda's storm passed. Sam, steel-hearted, wasn't just a Scarecrow. He was proof. Stand quiet, stand strong, and you win. I'd rebuild him any time, but she'd never dare return.